11 minutes of nonstop news, your Weather Authority forecast, and SWX sports headlines. This is KHQ Local News, 11 at 11.
Found guilty of murder by a jury of his peers. Coming up in about 3 minutes, find out how much time Clay Starbuck faces in jail. Plus, Spokane County Sheriff Ozzie Knezovich gives an update on an officer-involved shooting that left a Spokane Valley man dead. And find out if Coeur d'Alene city councilors approve anti-discrimination ordinances. Good evening and thank you for watching KHQ Local News 11 at 11. I'm Stephanie Vigil. We'll get to those stories in just a few minutes, but first we are closing in on 24 hours since a 911 call was made from a 9-mile area alerting authorities to a dead woman found in a shed, and we are still having many unanswered questions for us tonight. It all happened in the 14,000 block of West Autumn Lane in 9 Mile Falls just before 3 this morning. The body was found stuffed into a plastic tub filled with some sort of weak acid. Well, minutes later, SWAT teams arrived and surrounded a nearby home where 27-year-old Jason Hart and 2 senior citizens were inside. After hours of negotiations, Hart gave himself up. Now he is spending the night in jail, and the 2 elderly people, we are told, are safe. But the story does not end there. The woman who says she is still legally married to Jason Hart spoke exclusively to KHQ this evening, and Patrick Erickson joins us live now with what she has to say about this murder investigation. Patrick?
Well, Stephanie, good evening. Jessica Hart says her husband suffers from PTSD he got after being deployed to Iraq, and she says that this is not something her husband would have done.
I knew he'd been diagnosed with PTSD, and I knew he had some traumatic stress issues, but I didn't know the extent of the issues, and it's really just gotten worse and worse over the years. I had to go. I mean, there was nothing I could do to try to make things better, no matter how much I tried.
Married for almost 6 years, Jessica says things got so bad that she eventually had to move out, taking her 2 children with her. Now, she said there were times that Jason was a great dad, taking their kids camping and fishing, but when he would do drugs, he would become mentally unstable and become a completely different person. Now, according to Jessica, Jason was on and off the wagon for nearly a year, struggling with his drug abuse. He wouldn't stay all night with friends. He would actually bring those drugs home and do them in a bathroom by himself. Talking to him on the phone just yesterday, she said he was not in a good place. And this morning, when Jessica heard from a neighbor that a SWAT team was in her old neighborhood, she had a sinking feeling somehow Jason was involved.
I'm shocked, but in a way, I can't say I'm completely surprised. I mean, I am, but I'm not at the same time. I mean, the second my neighbor said there was a SWAT team in the neighborhood, I knew it had something to do with him.
Now, Jessica hoped Jason would eventually get help for his problems, and she never imagined anything like this ever happening. Now she's struggling with how she's going to explain to her kids that their dad could possibly be involved in a murder. Reporting live tonight, Patrick Erickson, KHQ Local News.
Patrick, thank you. There are a lot of unanswered questions tonight regarding the murder investigation. In the next few days, we expect Jason Hart to make his first court appearance and for official charges against him to be filed. We're also waiting for a report from the medical examiner to tell us the identity of the dead woman as well as her cause of death. You can read all the details of the story right now on KHQ.com. Our coverage includes raw video, interviews with neighbors, and a slideshow detailing the scene of this murder. We'll also have continuing coverage on our social media websites, Facebook and Twitter. Our other big story tonight, a Spokane County jury has convicted a Deer Park man of killing his ex-wife and sexually violating her remains. Clay Starbuck now faces a sentence of life in prison without parole for killing 42-year-old Shannon Starbuck. Prosecutors contended Clay Starbuck was a jealous, greedy, angry man who took out his frustrations on his ex-wife. Defense attorneys argued that any DNA that linked Starbuck to the scene remained from when he lived in the home. Starbuck's lawyers say they plan on appealing today's decision. We do have new information tonight on a deadly shooting that killed a man this past weekend. It happened in Spokane Valley, and according to sheriff's deputies, Roy Jacobs Jr. called 911 early Saturday morning to turn himself in on an outstanding warrant. They say there was a scuffle when they arrived and a woman was fighting with Jacobs. Court records say deputies pulled the woman off Jacobs, but he moved toward them with a 12-inch knife. According to the sheriff's office, that is when Deputy Jared Keene shot at Jacobs twice. Jacobs was eventually pronounced dead at the hospital. Keene, along with the other deputies who responded to the 911 call, are on paid administrative leave. And the sheriff said took some time today to talk about the effects of a shooting of this nature.
It is troubling to all law enforcement in the Spokane area that when one of these situations happen, it's automatically some people jump to the conclusions that something went wrong. No one wants to wait till the facts come out, and the deputies deserve better than that.
Keene has 13 years of experience with the Spokane County Sheriff's Office. New at 11, Coeur d'Alene is looking to become the latest North Idaho city to adopt an anti-discrimination ordinance. The ordinance aims to help the lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community, but some people in Coeur d'Alene aren't sure this ordinance would achieve anything at all. KHQ local news reporter Christy Arangis joins us live from North Idaho. And Christy, how did the City Council vote tonight?
Stephanie, good evening. In fact, they haven't voted at all yet. That is still happening. It's been a very exhausting and tense evening. We had 5 hours of public comment. That public comment portion just ended literally moments ago. And so city councilors are finally beginning to talk about the issue. That voting will happen at some point tonight, but it's probably going to be a couple more hours. I'm thinking Mike Kennedy even made a joke and said that it'll probably happen around 4 a.m. given how everybody is so opinionated on this issue. Everybody wants to get their opinion heard and their voice heard. I did speak to one woman before the meeting. She does identify as a lesbian. Her and her partner have lived in Coeur d'Alene for a very long time. They have 2 children, and she told me that she's been very disappointed with the amount of hate that has come out of this ordinance in recent weeks.
It's really depressing to know that that kind of sentiment doesn't exist, not even to provide these basic economic protections of housing and employment. That's all that's being requested, and to not even allow for that just makes me feel like we're 50 years in the past.
Some things to mention that have happened so far. Starting around 5:30 this evening, there was a line around the entire library of people waiting to speak. There were definitely well over 100 people who gave public comment tonight. The main room where this meeting was being held was at capacity. Fire marshals had to keep people in line. One man was escorted out by police because he was speaking out against some of the people who were speaking. Majority of the testimony has had a religious basis. Many mentioned Bible verses and various things based on Christianity. But city councilors have made sure to mention that this is a city government issue with no religious basis. Testimony from the other side of the issue, from the LGBT community, speaks of a lot of discrimination and a lot of hate and depression. So we will continue to look at this. I'll still be here and I'll have an update for you tomorrow. Reporting live, Christy Arangis, KHQ Local News.
Late night, all right. Thank you, Christy. If you were near Sacred Heart Medical Center today, you probably noticed nurses gathered outside the hospital to raise awareness about patient safety concerns.
We do stand up, fight back, stand up, fight back, stand up, fight back.
The nurses were joined by former patients and other supporters this afternoon for the picket line. According to a press release from the organization Spokane Loves Our Nurses, Sacred Heart made a $50 million profit last year for Providence, the company that owns the hospital. The nurses say they want some of that money invested in more training and safety measures. All right, it's time to check our forecast. A beautiful day today with more sunshine on the way. Dave?
Hi, good evening, Stephanie. It was a fabulous day, some of the nicest weather in the country. We saw temperatures in the 70s and the 80s, and currently, after a very sultry, mild evening, we're still sitting at 62 degrees with just a light, gentle breeze of 3 miles per hour, and it's going to continue to be one of those quiet nights. It's going to be refreshing and invigorating. Our temperatures all across the area are warm in places like Wenatchee, 72, 68 Moses Lake, and comfortable sleeping weather to be had in Sandpoint right now. it's 50 degrees. Overnight, Spokane will get down to 51 degrees, and sunrise is at 4:55. And as it rises, you'll actually see some clouds drifting across the sky overhead. High clouds that'll be filtering and screening the sunshine at times. It'll thin out during the afternoon hours and allow us to heat up to 81 degrees. And I want you to check this out. Look at the radars. What's all that green on there? Well, that just happens to be an atmospheric phenomenon known as anomalous propagation or super refraction. We're bending that radar beam under high pressure and an inversion, and that's a radar signature that means good weather. We'll talk more about that good weather forecast coming up in a few.
All right, Dave, thank you. It's that time of year where families are gearing up for vacations in their RVs and campers, but if you haven't used your RV since last summer, you might want to check up on a few things first. Dealers say it's a good idea to check for any stove gas leaks or any broken electrical wires. Don't forget to check out the vehicle's brakes. Dealers say simple precautions will help keep your trip as safe as possible.
We have such great places around here to go to that are close, that don't cost as much to go, that RVing is a great way to just get out and do things as a family and have a lot of fun.
Dealers say it's also a good idea to install smoke and carbon monoxide alarms in the RV in case there are problems inside the cabin. Well, right now we are in the thick of graduation season, and while graduates get a lot of gifts, there is one you probably haven't considered: a vaccine or a booster shot. Health district officials say now is an important time to get your older kids caught up on their shots. Current recommendations say kids should get booster shots for pertussis or whooping cough at age 11 and meningitis at age 16. Older teens who never got the shots are urged to get them now. All right, well, turned away from her senior prom because of her large chest.
An important night in my life was ruined, and there's no way I can gain that experience back.
You'll hear more from this Washington teen about what she calls a humiliating experience coming up in 15 minutes.
A baseball bombshell tonight could land a Seattle Mariner in hot water. We'll have the latest on Jesus Montero coming up later in sports.
All right, Sam, thank you. And I had the privilege to spend the afternoon with the fine supporters, volunteers, and organizers of the Vanessa Behan Crisis Nursery. We celebrated the nursery's 26th anniversary of the wonderful work they do right after the break.
Watch KHQ Local News and Ellen on your mobile device, free in the App Store right now.